All right, welcome back. So I'm back on the Cummins EPA fine. Little quick discussion. As far as an update on my truck, which is a 2017 max tow, heavy duty, whatever, Ison transmission, 410 gear, four-wheel drive, tradesman dually. It got the recall done. Have really noticed no issues other than I think that they have, as I discussed in my last video, I think set up the DEF to run out a little sooner on the gauge versus that, so you can't technically run the fuel tank out without having DEF in the tank, like you may have been able to do before given its levels, but who knows. I did tow last weekend. I put my side-by-side on top of my Diamondback bed cover, hooked my travel trailer up to it, which, as I've weighed before, is a gross combination of probably like 21,000 pounds. And I towed it about 500 miles. No issues. Everything, again, was normal. If they didn't tell me they did something, I wouldn't know. Ended up getting about a little over 9 miles to the gallon, which is normal for that combination. The side-by-side flat windshield sticking up above the back of the truck. Even if I just put the side-by-side on the truck without towing anything, it only gets 11 because of the wind resistance is so terrible. So that's completely normal for what I expect for that setup. And the DEF use was within the bounds of what I'm used to. I couldn't tell you whether it was more or less, but it didn't seem excessively different if it was different at all. So I'm still happy with that. Everything's looking good, in my opinion, and with my vehicle anyway. So something else I found this week in the news is the news article about Cummins train engines, of all things. Part of the settlement, apparently, let's see, $1.675 billion settlement, $1.48 billion to the federal government, because of course, yeah, they need more money. $164 million to the California Air Resources Board, shocker, and $33 million to the California Attorney General's office. Yet another shocker. But there's also an additional $325 million for excessive emissions released by pickup trucks. So that's, I guess, them paying for Chrysler or whoever the hell they are now to do all of the recalls. And then Cummins will repower 14 road locomotives in the 1,500 to 3,800 horsepower range, as well as 13 yard locomotives. The road locomotives have to be drawn from those currently unregulated in terms of emissions. In other words, Tier 0, 0 plus, or Tier 1, so some old stuff, before 2005 when, everything went to crap. Yard jockeys, the repowers have to come from unregulated emissions locomotives in Tier 0 or 0 plus. In other words, built before 2002. So the repowers to satisfy the consent decree are any that have a new engine installed inside a repowered locomotive after June 30th, 2024. They're going to prioritize them, selecting the completely unregulated, the zeros, first, and then moving into that. An unregulated locomotive is any unit still operating built prior to 73. So all repowers must use a prime mover or a new unit certified to Tier 4, so our current stuff. So this is interesting. I guess it sounds, all well and good that, yep, we're going to get some trains so they stop puffing fumes and soot. But I think this is probably part of how the government's going to pay Cummins back, because you take a 2000 version diesel locomotive with no effective emissions on it, it probably runs pretty good. Like a lot of the trucks. You get yourself a nice 2006 or earlier, any of the diesels really, before the trucks before they went to all this wacky DPF, DEF, all this other silliness. And those trucks run good, and they sell for a big premium right now compared to, 10, 15 years ago when people didn't realize how crappy this new emission stuff was going to be. But the new stuff with the DEF and the everything else, that requires a lot of maintenance and a lot of parts and a lot of cleaning, and guess who's going to get to do all of that maintenance and parts and cleaning and stuff? And it's going to be Cummins. So as they improve this, they're not going to make $100 million from it, but they're definitely going to see a lot more maintenance and parts sales on these poor old trains that they're going to ruin by converting to new stuff. Just because that's how the new ones work. They're not as robust, they're not as beefy, they're not as reliable generally because of the emissions. And one of the things I noted is that Cummins has been lagging behind some of the other manufacturers in their repower of older locomotives. And I found a presentation from the EPA from 2010 showing that, what Cummins was capable of doing. But I did read in that other article that they're not necessarily capable, they haven't really been doing enough of them. So, it requires Cummins to attempt to spread out the projects across the U.S. and select one switch locomotive repower in each of the 10 EPA regions across the country. Well, excluding California, since Cummins entered into a separate agreement with the state. Of course they did. So, they've got 5 years to complete all of the projects in the consent decree. It is ever more visible that the federal government just doesn't care about anything. They are power-hungry screwballs that are just trying to ruin everything. And I don't even know what to say about this stuff. I mean, trains? And 14 of them? How much is that going to matter? I mean, even if you eliminate, even if every car on the road, gas, diesel, or other, was switched to full electric, you'd barely make a dent in the overall emissions in this country. The vast majority of emissions globally aren't from road vehicles, it's from power generation. So, the only way to do that is to switch to nuke, and we all know how well that's been going since, 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. So, I don't know what else to say. So anyway, like I said, my truck's running pretty good. Have seen no issues. I need to get, now that I'm done using it for a little while, I got to get it back in the shop to have the few little leaks on the front cover and the front main seal fixed again under warranty. And we will go from there. If y'all have any other thoughts or comments on how your machine or Cummins is running since you've had the recall done, please let me know, because I am interested. I've seen a few people in the comments say that they have noticed a difference. And that's certainly possible, because there were a couple of different levels or a couple of different types of recalls for the different years trucks. The 18s and up, it's a different recall than the 17s and older like mine. So the newer ones may not be seeing the same thing that I am. But in my opinion, the mine is running pretty darn good, and I really wouldn't have noticed a difference had they not told me about it. So, hope you're all doing well. I think the Super Bowl's today. I don't know. I don't follow that stuff. But I hope whoever you want to win wins. So, y'all take care.